Hello, I'm Francis Seeley from GlobalNet 21 again, and I'd like to welcome you all to this webinar. As some of you know, and I'm sure many of you are on here who've been on our other webinars in the past, we try to do weekly webinars in which we look at some of the big issues that are facing us in the 21st century. And in this particular webinar, we're going to talk about a huge, ambitious project that was started in 2015 by the United Nations, which is to try to eradicate poverty and a lot of other problems in the world by 2030. And this was done under the Sustainable Development Goals. And we've got Malena Gamboa, who's going to come on in a minute. There you can see her, she's going to smile, and she's going to talk to us in a sec about the work that she's doing. And I'm going to hand you over to Malena very shortly, because what Malena is doing is she is trying to develop a global initiative to create awareness around the Sustainable Development Goals, to actually create a number of stories around what people are doing, and to try and bring people together in collaborative ventures. And I think that's a pretty ambitious goal. But Malena, as you'll find out, is a pretty energetic young lady, and she has got a lot of vision and passion about developing this and making it happen and trying to get people on board throughout the globe.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate the opportunity to share anytime I can what we are up to at Global Resolutions. So as you mentioned, and I think many of us are all aware that the UN has launched the new SDGs in 2015. They are an expansion on the Millennium Development Goals. And I became really interested in them as we were reaching the end of the 15-year, I wouldn't call it deadline, but the ambition of eradicating poverty by 2015. And there was a tremendous amount of progress. But as we all know, just looking around ourselves, looking around, and now with, all of us being so much more socially connected and so much more aware of the challenges that we're facing, it's a critical time for us to come together to co-create solutions, to leverage our interconnectedness, to find innovative solutions from the ground up, not just the top down. So it's a wonderful time to be here and to roll up our sleeves. I mean, it's how can I say it? It's never a great time to have the challenges that we're having, but it's also simultaneously, ironically, as things get more critical, we also have the technology and innovation to bring people together to find the solutions. And I think the more we get that message out, and the more we empower people's creative insights, their intuition, or just their accidental discoveries in their garages, and we can share that globally. I think it's a really fun time to and a wonderful time to come together in a time of crisis and find positive approaches, try to maintain our spirits up. So for me, that's what was the birth of Global Resolutions. I saw a video, I was online, socially connected. So I saw a video of something taking place in Kibera, Kenya, and also other videos on, particularly around water. I'm very touched by wanting to help create solutions for the water situations around the world. And I'm in California, so this was the last couple of years we really felt it here, but I can only imagine, the hardships and watching the hardships in the developing world. So I was sitting around thinking, how can we leverage all of this to aggregate movements? And around that time, we were seeing movements emerge, and they're just all over the place now. So I'm super excited about that part of our emerging culture. So Global Resolutions is a platform. We're going to be launching a collaboration component to our network very, very soon, with an incredible new technology called Neuron that will help us to aggregate and show real-time visual representations of all the efforts taking place. So and I won't say much more about it now, but if you sign up for our website, we'll be sending updates on its launch. And that's going to play a really key part in connecting us with all the campaigns we're going to be launching this year. We're developing a very exciting one right now as we speak. I have meetings right after here to start keep working on that. It's about bringing the youth together through dance and song to raise funds for the SDGs and awareness for the SDGs. So there's a lot of little things that we can do together. I feel like what is key to having successful campaigns and to having, just from the research I've been doing and the work that we've been doing is to make it as collaborative in terms that we hear everybody's voices and we incorporate as many creative ideas as we can together. People become more vested in it. They get more excited to see its evolution, and through today's marketing techniques and giving people access to the making of these events, the stories behind the people making these events, the stories of the causes we want to support, just the greater the transparency, the greater the heart, the more impact we're able to bring about culturally. To me, it's about helping further the shift of awareness of our interconnectedness, and that we all really are and have the tools to be empowered to create change. And I think we're all clear that it isn't something that we need to leave to the UN or to governments, but that we ourselves are the solution. I think we're all clear about that. I think all of us that are even on this webinar are tuned into that, and that's why we're here. So now it's a matter of what actions can we take. And so we're going to be creating a lot of smaller campaigns, national campaigns, and the hope is to bring them all together on New Year's Eve to showcase them, showcase the media, showcase what took place throughout the year, and collect new resolutions from people with a focus on the Sustainability Development Goals, leveraging social media and our neuron technology. That wasn't exactly 20 minutes. I talk really fast. It seemed like 20 minutes when I was testing it out. So I'm open to any questions, particular questions you might have, or if I'm missing something that you may have noticed.
Okay, so you finished. That was very short and very quick. Yeah, you talk fast like me, and that's okay. That's okay. You get a lot of information in. Okay, just tell us a bit more about. I mean, what do you aim to do? I mean, how do you sort of measure your outcomes? What's the aim of global resolutions? If you were to look at it in a few years' time and you've been successful, what would be the measure of that success?
Well, the collaboration platform is going to include a geo map that will allow us to track the activities around the world, the resolutions, in real time, live. So at any point you can see our members' participation and the ripple effect that they have, the assessment of the ripple effect. It also has components that can, has like a history component, so you can click on it and see historically what we've been doing and the trajectories that we all have. So I think that is powerful in terms of keeping people, aware in real time that their impact is affecting the big numbers. As opposed to waiting for any kind of time to see, did my efforts really amount to anything? So there's that measuring. But in terms of vision, what I'd like to see is to be able to create a unity around the world and a spirit of resolutions on New Year's Eve, where people, where we've moved our resolutions from losing 10-pound Christmas weight to what am I going to do for water this year? What am I going to do for SDG 6, SDG 4? And for people to be aware of what these SDGs are and tracking the growth. What organizations are out there doing incredible work around these SDGs? What resources do they need? Who else has solutions that they can bring to their efforts? And that's what we want to be able to start tracking with our technology. Again, I don't want to go too much into it. I will be announcing its release, and it will come out in phases. But that is the big picture. So it's really creating a vehicle that unifies and empowers and includes everyone's efforts.
we assume, don't we, that someone's got their microphone. No, it's okay. I thought we had feedback there. We all assume people know what SDGs are. And Jane at one point asked, what is SDGs? And then she realized what it was. Let's assume that some people don't know. How would you explain to them what SDGs are? There's 17 of them, and I don't want you to go through all of them, Malena, because that would take us a couple of hours. But can you give people a sort of, a short, brief view of what those goals are and how important you think they are, and also how difficult they are to achieve?
Right. And you can see them on our website. If you go to globalresolutions.org and scroll down, you'll see the goals, the 17 goals, starting with hunger. And they've, they used to be the 8 Millennium Development Goals, and they've branched out to 17 goals, part of the necessary ecosystem of, we can't eradicate poverty if we're not creating infrastructures. Those are important components, also governance, and so social justices. And so they're all there. And if you click on the links, you could, for instance, if we click right now on, action around poverty, there's a tweet there. You can go on there and just tweet your resolution at any time throughout the year. But we are including the progress on here, the campaigns that are out there publicly, the challenges, and links to the United Nations. You're right that not enough people know, at least in mass numbers or socially in mainstream pop culture, are aware of the SDGs, which is why it's so important that we start campaigning in a way that is inclusive, that has the bottom-up organic components to it, that is open to participation, creative participation, that is agile, that includes the social reach that we all have access to now. My goal is for all of us to make social impact and change very sexy, something you don't want to miss out on and be a part of. I think approaching it through pain and negativity isn't as inspiring. I think while those are things that are very, very true, and the facts are going to speak for themselves, and the information is out there, the challenges that people are facing, I think that the way that we want to inspire participation is through positive enforcements. Look at the positive that we're doing together. And access a pop culture component to it.
It might be good if I can do this. We'll try. I'll share your website a moment, and then people can see what you've got, Malena, on the development goals. Can you see them there now?
Yep. There we go.
If you see them, those are the goals. You can see number 1, which is action on poverty, action on hunger. Number 2, action on health and well-being, action on quality education. I won't go through them all, but you can see they're all down there. If you go to Malena's website and you click on each of these, it tells you more about it. And the United Nations also has a website as well, and they also tell you a lot about those particular goals, and it's worth really looking at that as well. So go there and you'll be able to see that. When you Peter has also given you a link to the website as well, Peter Felton, which is good. So if you go to the website, we've got the link there, and you had it on our promo, so you can see it. So when you say you're trying to get action around these goals, just take one. One that you're passionate about that led you into this: water. People having enough water, clean water, pure water. If you were to focus on that goal, what would you hope would be the outcome of what you do?
Well, my big picture around water is to have our annual events drive funding and awareness to one specific goal and all the goals throughout the year. But I think it's critical to see and feel, and for all of us to get excited about how much we can do together with, you know, the big bang. What is the big bang? What is the big boom that we can do for each goal? Not only will it bring awareness, but have some massive impact. So I want to launch that for this New Year's on water. So raise significant amount of funds around it. So we were able to create a campaign that took place around the world on one day, and everyone donated $1, and we can get 1 million people to participate. We're going to generate $1 million for that one cause. And if we can measure and track where those resources go throughout the year, we continue to educate on the cause. If we did that every single year for the next 17 years, we're going to drive massive awareness and impact around each of these goals. And we have the tools today to measure how those resources are used and to, you know, have accountability for them. So that's one way. Personally, I mean, I love what water.org is doing. Charity Water is doing. We promote them on our site. We help spread their stories, the work that they're doing, and that can be done for each of the SDGs, bringing together the partners that are working, the people that are rolling up their sleeves on the ground, telling their stories, and then, you know, elevating the heroes, bringing them to the forefront so that we can provide them the resources. There will be donation buttons once these, all of our partners are vetted. There'll be donation buttons that will be going straight to them. So obviously resources always is a big issue, but it's also beyond the resources. It's the creative, collaborative, innovative thinking on solutions. We have many NGOs working on the same issues that are not connecting. We want to create those connecting portals for them.
Do you see that as one of your main goals, to be a connector, broker?
Yeah, that's the neuron technology will help us with that extensively. I mean, I do that naturally on my own, but we want to do this on a big scale, and it is a lot easier for people to connect today. Just sharing links and people just knowing where their Twitter's accounts are, where their LinkedIn accounts are. You know, it's really, I think, having just the permission, creating a culture where we have permission to connect with one another and we're doing social good, and knowing how to, you know, spot the doers. But yes, that's our platform aims to be a big part in helping facilitate that.
Amadeus raises a question. He says, how do you inspire individuals to take action around SDGs? He says it's one thing for people to be inspired, but how do you know they take the next step in terms of developing a positive message? And I guess an outcome. You inspire them, but what happens after the inspiration?
Well, we have to keep going with it. We have to keep bringing people together with and sharing ideas and creating challenges. Gamification is a big driver today. There is definitely a component of whether or not how moved a person, there's how moved a person is, and then when they're moved enough to actually do something about it. And again, I think we're living in a critical time of mass change, and we're seeing, just by observing, if you observe, you know, the Women's March, how many people actually got on their streets around the world to participate with that. So I think that was activated by a lot of anger. And what I want to do is, let's get these people that are out there doing this and create something positive with that impulse and that drive. So campaigns that are inspiring play a big role in that. Having a place that they can go to and know what actions they can take, creating challenges and rewards. One of the campaigns we're working on right now will be doing that. There will be, you know, giveaways at the end of the competitions. But it's also about being able to bring the influencers, you know, your everyday global citizens, celebrities, awesome technologies into one place, bring them all together and make it, you know, creatively in terms of smart marketing, visually, and organically and authentically. It's a lot of these components that we're seeing, but it's weaving them together in a tapestry that inspires. If people aren't inspired today, we see the inspiration happening. We see the numbers growing. The goal is to create what kind of culture do we want to live in 5 years, and see those numbers grow throughout the years and be able to track that. And that's what the map is about, is be able to track the growth, how people start to jump on board.
So, I mean, is your aim, I mean, you hope to get $1 million, say, on one of the goals, take water, but is your aim to convince government to be more, savvy about these goals and to actually do something about it themselves? Are you a pressure group as well, or are you just a group that wants to work from the bottom up and create a groundswell of opinion, raise money, and is some of that money then going, for example, take the water one, into helping some countries develop clean water, or is it just used in order to create awareness? And, again, that goes back to Amadeus's question. You created awareness, you still have to go, beyond that. So, I mean, how are you sort of operating groundswell or lobbying government, and the output, what happens then?
I don't think it's an either or situation. I think that we implement as much of everything that you're speaking about in our architecture, and we do it in agile ways. I mean, things are changing every 6 months. You plan out 6 months, and the landscape is changing, the strategies are changing. So I think it's an awareness of as an architect, a campaign architect, is how can we bring all these pieces together so that they make sense. Obviously, the old form of doing things, where we left it all to government, where we left it all to grants from philanthropic initiatives or organizations, maybe worked for a small period of time, but not at the scale and the speed that we need. We're at such a critical time. So we need to get people participating, as many people as we can, and in many ways that they can, through volunteerism, but also through donations. So it's about having the tools and the transparency to put them together. I'm hoping that I'm answering your question. I've been invited to speak with, to present at the UN, to present with members of the UN. I think some governments, are slow to catch on to the impact of social media and aggregated groups and crowdsourcing. If you look at the crowdsource landscape and platforms, the Kickstarters, the people launching their projects, and the support we can bring them through, a PayPal click. That took the individual's passion to create something, but leverage the tools, put their work out there, and seek out the resources. And many people are successful, some aren't, but we see that growing. And so we want to take those trends, bring them together.
John mentions churches. Do you work with churches as well, Malena? You're in the United States. It's a big church country. I mean, do you work with churches? Do you work with churches as part of your network?
We have not worked with religious organizations directly, but we're not closed to the idea at all.
I have a question, Francis. Malena, so who coordinates all this? Because you are talking about different countries, and how, like UK, who is leading this in the UK?
We have ambassadors, and we're also seeking more ambassadors. We have an ambassador in the UK. We have an ambassador in Australia and Canada and Africa. We are. If you go to our sites, if you're interested in being an ambassador to help, move this forward in that country, connect with me. We will do everything we can to support the work that our ambassadors are doing. In addition to supporting the global resolutions agenda, also the work that each of our ambassadors are doing. Our Australian ambassador, for instance, Caitlin, I'll put her link on here. She's an amazing young woman who her goal is to educate 1 million Pakistani women. So we want to leverage our platform to support her. Meanwhile, she's out there campaigning for global resolutions. It's a partnership. It's a partnership that also showcases our heroes and the amazing work that everybody's doing. I mean, at the end of the day, what we're doing is helping create a culture of impact and connecting nodes. And obviously today we use media to distribute these messages and campaigning and technology, but what we're looking at is the emergence of a new culture.
Yes, because I'm thinking that no matter what, you need to have the same direction. So every country, if they want to be involved, and then everyone has to move on the same direction in order to do it together. Yeah, but John, he has explained what he meant here.
Yeah, John is saying it's a papal document, and it was written before the global summit where the Pope pointed out the problems affecting the Earth, and he says it's well worth reading. So, okay, thanks for that, John. And if you've got a link to that, please put it up. That would be interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, Malena, supposing someone on here said, right, Malena, I really would like to be an ambassador here in the UK. What do I do as an ambassador?
Okay, so we have a toolkit for ambassadors. They're unique. They customize them based on the country and what they're involved in. But as a general template, I'll just say that they would be an advocate for global resolutions, and we would be an advocate for them. We would be sharing the work that they're doing, and as we approach the key moments of our campaigns, we would be highlighting that ambassador and the aggregated work that they were able to accomplish in that region that they're representing. So it gives them sort of a platform to become leaders, influencers themselves, and highlight the needs in that country, and the solutions that they're identifying, that they can present as part of a global resolutions agenda, but also, a way to bring resources and support to the work that is being done in that region of the country. That's a general sum, but I work with them individually. We sit down and we, and they help to spread whatever campaign we're going to be working on for those 6 months. Mostly so far it's been around global resolutions. We're waiting on the technology to have that complete so that we could start measuring. But like I said, we're going to be doing some flash mobs in September that we want to get people excited about and dancing on, bringing everybody together around the SDGs. So again, I mean, that's the gist of it. Is we would be working with them independently and individually around that agenda.
But to take Fong's point up, for example, she said, I think someone's microphone is causing feedback. If you could turn yours on one moment. If you're not on, you're on the earphones. Okay, fine, it's gone now. That's great. I mean, supposing you've got an ambassador here, I mean, Fong's point is you really, maybe you have to have an overall goal. Supposing we're going to deal with water this year and you get an ambassador who says, I've become an ambassador because I'm really interested in health and well-being, and that's what I want to do. Do you say to that ambassador, no, we're doing water this year, or start building up on the goal that you think is important and we can work with you on that?
Well, we're not doing just water throughout the year. We want to raise on New Year's Eve donations, just simple campaigns around New Year's Eve, 24 hours. How much can our collective efforts focus on water this year? We'll focus on, these are, examples. We'll focus on poverty next year. In the year after that, we're focusing on another one. And that's just to see how the power of the collective, the power of, we saw this with Bernie Sanders' campaign out here in the United States. I mean, he raised the entire campaign, millions upon millions of dollars, of small $27 donations. It was something everybody can do. How much can we do in 24 hours? I think it's a good question. It's a simple. People spend most money on New Year's Eve on entertainment than any other day of the year. They spend a fortune to get into clubs and nightclubs. So we say donate. You start the new year, donate $1 to water, or maybe it's donate to women's issues. Maybe it's donate $1 to. We want to just pick one so that we see the impact. But that does, throughout the year, we're going to be focusing on all of the SDGs.
Tell us what, I mean, maybe, Fong, you can come up with the two questions from Peter and John in a minute, but tell us about the New Year's Eve venture. I mean, you did something like that the last New Year's Eve. Can you explain that a bit more to people so they understand what you plan to do on New Year's Eve?
Okay, so we ran an online campaign encouraging people just to sow through social media to go through our website, learn about the goals, and make a resolution around the goals. This year, we wanted to include our collaboration platform and the donations, and do it around 24 hours. So New Year's Eve is the broadest, it's the most celebrated day of the year that is non-religious, non-political, observed around the world, the Gregorian calendar. China observes it as well. It's not the Chinese New Year's, but they still observe it. So we've got televisions going on around the world as the clock counts down. We want to create a thread that ties it all together and tells a global story. We want to bring stories that we've captured throughout the year. We want to get our ambassadors on this, interviewing people live, and focus on the SDGs as an invitation for people to make resolutions around them and educate themselves around them. But also, a simple click on your phone donates $5 to water or $1 to water. And we want to be able to include this in the developing world. It's the most widely observed day of the year. We don't have to invite people to do something other than they're already doing. I think that's the wisdom in selecting a day that is already recognized for celebration and resolution making, and just fixing it on impact resolutions for the world, for sustainability.
Okay, Phong, do you want to take up Peter and John's points?
So Peter, he agreed. He thought it was ambassadors is a good idea because they know the country and they know how best to proceed. So he thinks that the lady from Pakistan was a good example. So a question is, what is the difference between the diplomat and ambassadors? Are they? Is it or is the ambassador a diplomat?
It's ambassadors. We're using the term ambassador. They're representing the mission of bringing people together for social impact, and ideally we'll end this year with 17. Next year, double that, triple that. My hope is that this will grow exponentially, but that we can also manage it, and manage the communications. But again, that's what the technology is here for. There are opportunities. It's not the people that we are inviting to come on board as ambassadors are already actively doing some amazing work in the world. We want to be able to, to let the platform serve as a sounding board for the work that they're doing.
So you are saying that not everyone can be ambassadors. They go through a selection process.
They go through a selection process. Everyone is invited to participate, and then there are agents. There are people that can participate at different levels. We're speaking about the ambassadors, and so that's what I was pointing out. We currently have 7 ambassadors. We're working on building to 17. But we are looking to create directors and leaders in smaller scale. This has been a growing exercise, and we are responding to and finding solutions for the feedback that we're getting. And we have right now we're working with Plus Social Good, for instance. Plus Social Good, they work with Mashable and the UN Foundation, and they have already ambassadors that work for Plus Social Good, and so their Plus Social Good ambassadors promote us, and we promote them. So we're also working with other organizations that are sounding boards and activist organizations. That makes our work a little bit easier because they're already got their infrastructures, and then they're ambassadors. But specifically global resolutions, that we do want our ambassadors to be actively working in social impact, and creating change.
So John, he just has a comment here that he's pleased that the charities are working together. So it's great. And Peter, he also said that he's pleased that you are not focusing on churches, because sometimes it do more harm than it helps.
That's a hot potato.
Yeah, it's just a comment. Francis, if you don't have any question, then I have one.
Yeah, we've got plenty, I'm sure. Go ahead, Phong.
Yeah. I'm just thinking because right now I start to wonder. So we have ambassadors, and then we also have what you said before is kind of different level of participation that you can participate, and then you go through application and then the selection process. can you find everything on the internet if people are interested in being part of this resolution?
Yes, the big part of that and how we want to facilitate that is through the collaboration platform, and we will be announcing when we launch it in beta. It's something we've been working on for a couple of years. The technology is really advanced, and it'll allow us to show. So if you go on there and you want to participate, you would open up a profile, a simple profile through your social media keys, and you would identify the goals that you're interested in supporting. You'd get information in your email about what organizations we're working with that they can participate with, so whether it's through volunteerism or donations. And then you make your own resolution, your own goal, and if you have your own idea of how you want to move forward with your goals, and it'll be a place where you can connect with others. But more importantly, you're going to start affecting the global visual representations, the global map. That will be, we could see it live. And the reason for that, we think, you know, the elegance and the beauty of that is that we could see the impact that we're having together in real time. We see the numbers growing in real time. We're not doing this alone. We're not doing it in small little hubs. We're doing the small hubs in our own personal work, but we can see the progress and the impact we're having together.
Okay, there are a number of questions coming up. I mean, John said that he seems to sign a lot of petitions nowadays about government actions working against the achievement of those sustainable goals. So that comes back to a question I suppose I asked you earlier. I mean, are you trying to work with Congress at all? We've got Elizabeth on here tonight, I know, who is working with us for Alpha Zulu, and she is trying to work specifically at government to get them to focus on those goals and input into achieving those. Are you sort of leaving that to someone else, Malena, or is that a part of your mission?
Well, I would like to connect with organizations that are actively doing that and showcase them and showcase the work that they're doing. It's not been our main focus at Global Resolutions. We were focused on water. We were focused on you know, discussions on climate change, conversations and actions around those. But you know, we have a new president here in the United States, and it's me and my team. We sat there and we're having meetings of how what is Global Resolutions' role in the changing political paradigm here in the United States and how it's affecting the view around the world. There's a lot of change that's taken place in the last 4 months, and so it's not off the table. We're just still rolling up our sleeves and figuring out how we can do it in a way that is as inclusive as possible, that does not alienate certain demographics and their interest in impact. And value memes play, and considering value memes plays a big role in that. We do not want to be identified as a progressive platform only. We're a platform that aggregates, as you know, and is as inclusive as possible. Oftentimes, the value means and the resolutions that people are going to want to participate when we're looking at bringing together bigger numbers are going to be more humanitarian based than environmental based. So this is just an awareness of the developmental value means. So we have a lot of talking, you know, conversations to have. I don't make an executive decision about those things. I seek out the advice and observe what's emerging, and I want to hear from people and explore efforts and initiatives others are doing around this and see how they're tackling it in terms of campaigning.
I mean, that's an interesting answer, because you mentioned that, again, getting back from someone's microphone, you mentioned that, you know, you have to reflect the changing demographics that are happening in our different countries, and particularly in your country. Now, how do you do that? How do you bring people on board who sort of have voted for Trump on the basis of, you know, make America great again, or the Brexit people we have to work with in this country who wants to make our country great again and independent. And you're talking about a global perspective, and they're talking about a national perspective. How do you bring those together to achieve the goals that you want to achieve?
Well, I think we need to step outside of having to have our opinion and our value be the right value. whether or not it is. Not saying that, you know, people aren't holding a higher value, a global value, you know, is more inclusive than a national value. National value is more us against them, or just us and not them. So the way that I approach it is the project and the work and the intentions and initiatives are already global. So what I want to be able to do is to get as many people to participate in that in a way that is inclusive. So when we look at the UN goals, we have issues, you know, like poverty. Poverty is an issue in every country, even the United States. Hunger. A lot of people go hungry in the United States. And so when we campaign or discuss these issues with, say, someone who is a big advocate of Donald Trump, and the big concern right now is the economy, we would drive their attention to economic growth and what that would look like in the United States. We probably would not have the discussion on climate change, and we would save that for a demographic that is interested in the climate change. The goal for me is if you bring everybody together, eventually we're going to start influencing one another. It's going to start seeping into our minds. We're going to start opening ourselves up in our heart, in the heart space. Because that is an organic process. It's a process we influence one another just by being around one another. And I want to make sure that I'm saying this, I'm trying to be very mindful not to be condescending and not to talk down to any particular group. It is the intent. New Year's Eve is observed by people of different value means, and so somebody might not be interested or believe in climate change. We see a lot of that. They don't believe in climate change. But that doesn't mean that they don't want to do something to help the orphans in the world, you know, or hunger. And so they may not want to get out and volunteer, but they might be okay with donating $1 to, you know, Global Citizen or Global Poverty Project.
Well, that's a good approach, and I think that's really great. But in a way, you can't avoid the politics of it, can you, in some respects? Because the eradication of poverty, for example, there's a big argument between whether you should give aid or whether you should just concentrate on trade. And that is a huge divide. You may get caught up in that. I mean, people will say, right, you want to get involved in Global Resolution 1, but there's this debate. Where does Global Resolution stand on that?
What I would like for global resolutions to be able to do, and again, it's an agile platform, right? It's an agile platform, is to showcase the different views through media, through our social platforms, and to dismantle the information, so that the conversations, they need to be had and they need to be focused. But what we showcase on New Year's Eve is the actual work that people are doing on the ground and tell the human story. You know, there are threads in which we all connect. We all connect to love. We all connect to you know, we can experience some level of empathy. So media plays a big role. The way that we tell the global story, the way that people, you know, if you could create a story, and this is what I'm hoping New Year's Eve becomes every year, of when I first conceived of the New Year's event, I saw myself sitting on the moon and watching the Earth spin, and what is happening on the Earth, all of it, without judgment. How can we have that reflected back to humanity so that humanity can see, well, where do I sit in this tapestry compared to others? And so, again, this global map is a big part of it. It's impossible to not have a solid, like, where's Malena's position? But I mean, it's obvious my position just by the work that I'm doing. But again, inclusivity is something that I'm attempting, or that we're attempting to do through global resolutions. And it's something that we might have to be just reviving, you know, and learning as we go along.
But I think that what you're doing in terms of storytelling is very important. You know, you can present to people a whole lot of quantitative evidence, statistics, and it's cold and they don't understand it. But if you do what you're saying, collect stories, that brings it alive, doesn't it? That creates empathy. And is that what you're trying to do? You're trying through stories to get people to put themselves in somebody else's shoes.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, you know, through the entire developmental or value spectrums of all our values, you know, we do connect at the heart. You may not believe in climate change, but you've known love. Maybe you've known heartbreak. And so there are ways in storytelling that we can start driving that sense of unity together. I have friends from many different demographics. You know, I have friends that voted for Trump, and I connect with them, you know, with regard to our children and education and kindness and around the holidays, and I try to be an example, and I try to speak as compassionately as I can to an understanding of our different value memes, without judgment, so that, you know, we influence each other just by being around one another. And again, I mentioned it early, we're living in quite an interesting time, because social media and our ability to connect has allowed us to see the different cultures. And it makes sense that initially, as we start to observe the different cultures, that we start forming our opinions. Sometimes if it offends our values, we reject it. But when it keeps coming back and keeps coming back, eventually the shock factor and the need to defend our own value system starts to soften. And we start, well, maybe I would do it a little different, or maybe I can see that point of view. It's a process. And so telling stories is very important. And yet we have to balance that against, you know, the time. We have to balance it against 2030 goals. You know, there is an urgency. So that's something I hope we can all solve together.
So you have a goal by next year. You would like to have 17 ambassadors. Today you have 10, and that's what you would like to do. Just go out and be kind to people and talking to people and try to influence people being kind.
Telling the stories of the extraordinary work everyday people are doing around the world. Telling those stories, and what I mean by telling stories, it isn't just telling, you know, that say Caitlin is wanting to educate a million Pakistani girls. It's Caitlin has to get up in the morning and has responsibilities in the morning and has to pay her bills in the morning and is inspired by others that keeps her going. So it's the story of the work and the girls that move her. It's their story. It's her story. It's others like Caitlin. It's Caitlin has a bad day and how does she deal with that? I have a bad day. I deal with that. I'm a mother of two. I have special needs child too. So there's stories that we're all in this together. And I think
But sometimes you also need people to listen to you, wouldn't you? You know, you have a good stories, and it is not about you. It is like if I could tell people about a story about someone else, I also need that person to give me 5 minutes to listen to my story, and that person also would get the point of the story and do something about it. It is, I think, it's the challenging part of it. You tell the story and you are very excited yourself that it is a story, it inspires you, but that person, the person who listening to it, he or she doesn't feel anything. You know, it is because it doesn't,
they're not ready to be touched that way. Yeah. But the story is shared with more than one person. You know, it eventually it reaches some people, it doesn't reach others, and maybe it doesn't reach others right now, maybe it will reach them later.
You have very strong belief.
Yeah. So supposing, you know, some people in this country or any other country who see this webinar or see what you're doing, they say, we want to come on board, we want to get involved. We don't necessarily want to be an ambassador, we don't want to be, you know, full on like that, but we want to help in some way or the other. what advice would you give them? How can they help if they're not an ambassador in different countries?
Well, I would like to speak with them and find out the work that they're doing and what motivates them. Why? What is it? I always start with, what is it that you want to see change in the world? What is it that you're motivated to do? And then we see how that can fit into the architecture. You know, people say, wow, this is such a big project that has so many pieces. Well, I didn't come up with all the pieces. It's been through conversation and exploration, through members, through teams, through issues that someone brought up that really do need to be addressed. And so for instance, our UK ambassador is an advisor in policy, and he loves what we're doing and now wants to share what we're doing with you know, members that he's working with in climate change on a government level. We're exploring how that will happen. We're exploring what that can look like. We want to make sure that this becomes a platform that the people feel is something that we're all doing together, as opposed to having been hijacked by a government and policy. So it's again, I go back to it being an agile conversation, and that my team and myself, we stay open to that. You have to today. You have to do it today.
I mean, you don't just need an ambassador, do you? You also need a networker, because if you're going to have collaborative projects around some of these goals, doing something on water, you want to know about all the organizations working towards that particular goal in different countries, so that you can collaborate them together. You can create a social map. How are you going about achieving that? Because that is an incredibly ambitious, you know, thing to do.
If you go to our website, we have our partners. So far, we're growing that list. Global Solutions Networks, for instance, has been taking that on. They have been vetting and working with mass groups, and have vetted them and creating tools for them to collaborate. So we decided that we would work with them directly, because they've gone through that process. And so why recreate what they've done? And so we're in conversations with Global Solutions Networks to help promote the work of all the organizations that they've already vetted. And because I have tremendous faith in the team behind Global Solutions Networks, they're tremendous integrity and impeccability. So there's that. And then some of our ambassadors are doing that for us as well, in New York City, where, you know, a lot of the UN groups come together. So that's pretty much to answer your question. That's my approach. Is I bring together the connectors. I would have the time to connect with everybody individually myself, but I work with the connectors and bring in their connections, and we weave it together.
Do you do that on a one-by-one basis, or do you have some sort of collective way in which you can bring them together to talk together?
It depends on the group. It depends on also, you know, the ambassador. Oftentimes the ambassador wants to be the person who takes that on and leads that partnership. Caitlin did that with a World Merit Organization. And so when the World Merit presented their initiative at the UN, Caitlin presented Global Resolutions on our behalf as in the partnership with World Merit. You know, again, I trust our ambassadors are amazing young people. And so for me, it's about keeping the vision and the communication open with our ambassadors.
Okay, so we're getting very close to the end. We're getting very close to the end now. So supposing 2030 comes, 17 years on, 17 goals, what would have made you happy in 2030? What would make you say, I've done a good job? What would you be happy to be able to exclaim as a result of all your work?
Well, I think it would be wonderful if 2030 comes and we're able to set a 2060 goal, meaning that we still see ourselves as a thriving planet by 2060 and onward. You know, I think that's the most important, is how sustainable will our planet be I mean, there are a lot of issues I care very much about. I have a disabled child who is autistic, and I care a lot about autism. And I'm reading that, you know, by 2025, there's a possibility that 50% of all our children will have autism. And that is, you know, extremely important in the future of our planet. But if we have no sustainable planet, you know, we have to start with how sustainable is our planet, you know, and prioritizing the urgencies. And so I would like for 2030 to come and for us to know that we've bought more time. But I think emotionally, just that we've created a vehicle that is intelligent, that is collaborative, that includes the aggregated efforts of a collective intelligence.
Okay, well, thanks, Malena. If anyone is interested in finding out more about it, obviously go to Malena's site, and again, I'll put that up now for you to look at on the right-hand side of the screen. If you want to click on that, you know, go to that, find out more about the sustainable goals and also what Malena is doing. And also, if you want to be involved, I'm sure if you contact Malena, that'd be great. Malena, maybe you could type your email address in so they've got that, or contact me and I will pass that on to Malena as well. So I think that you know, she's got a very ambitious task ahead of her, but I think Malena's been doing a fantastic job. She's got a lot of people together. She's got a lot of organizations interested, and she's thinking big. And that is really, I think, very important in terms of those goals, which are big in themselves. So thanks for doing this, Malena. And I'm sure we're going to do more with you again in the future. And you put your email up now so people can contact you. So thanks a lot, and thanks a lot, Fong, for helping out as well.